Hi, my name is Gina, and I'm the District 1 representative on Belmont City Council. And our district really is the center of development here in the city because of our walkability and our proximity to transit. And I'm getting more and more questions on development, and development means the building of residential and commercial spaces. So I'm getting more and more questions because more and more residences are being built. And why are they being built? This is because of the housing crisis here in California. And what does that mean? What that means is that there are just not enough homes, apartments, houses here in California. And why does that matter? That matters because in terms of economics, low supply equals high demand and high cost. So there are lots of families who are working 2 and 3 full-time jobs and cannot afford rent in a way that makes the rest of their lives livable. And so the idea is that by increasing housing supply due to the law of economics, if there's more supply, demand and cost will go down, and folks will be able to afford rent in a way that makes the rest of their lives reasonable. Belmont has been working on this problem for a while now, and we came up with solutions in our 2017 Belmont General Plan and Belmont Village Specific Plan. These city-based plans allow for additional heights to be built, around 4 stories, with some restrictions and some required amenities, like commercial spaces on the ground floor of residential buildings in areas where we wanted mixed use and walkable vibrancy, and community amenities like art. Since then, the state has passed hundreds of laws to very much limit how cities are able to regulate the development within their own city limits. I think this happened because some cities didn't respond at all to the housing crisis and refused to build and share space. And this caused the state to become really prescriptive with cities and insistent on making it very easy for developers to develop large projects. And state legislators have intensified their purview over city development year after year. So whether you are a fan of this or not a fan of this, I think it's important that you understand the way that it works. So here's a presentation that I've given at a few different neighborhood association meetings, very practical with Legos so that you can see how city law and state law interacts with each other. And just so you know, state law supersedes city law. So it's not an option for cities. And some cities have tried not doing the things that the state have asked them to do, and they have been sued and they have lost. So this is not optional. Okay, so the way that this works is a developer looks first at Belmont's plans, some of the plans that we mentioned, and looks at those requirements. And then they look at state laws and they overlay the state laws over the city requirements. And state laws include unlimited waivers to bypass much of what the city actually wants in place. So here's an example of something our Belmont City plans would allow and encourage. Let's say it's a mixed-use building with commercial on the bottom, represented by these transparent windows, and then 3 more floors of residential homes on top, 20% of which are affordable. And it's here in our transportation corridor, which is near El Camino and the train station, with parking as required by the city, and that's represented by the blue here. And Belmont also has an art requirement for new builders, and that's represented by BB8 here. Developers don't have to actually submit the architectural drawings of this concept that they start with. They just start with a Belmont approved concept in their mind, and then they get to work using state laws. State density bonus law says that you can add a few more stories. So that developer decides to go from 4 stories to 6 stories. They can go as high as 8 or 9 stories. State law also says that anything in a commercial district can be developed to 100% residential. So the developer decides to change their ground floor from commercial to residential. In so doing, they remove any requirements associated with an active use ground floor, such as the transparent windows or anything like that. Next, state law says that cities can't require parking within a half mile of a transit hub. So the developer decides to get rid of parking. Next, the developers decide that they don't want to spend money on art. They want to put it all into affordable housing. So they use one of the unlimited waivers, again, they're unlimited, to bypass the art requirement, saying that it would cost too much money and make the project fiscally impossible. Do they have to prove that it would actually make it fiscally impossible? No. State law says they just have to say it and the city has to accept it. And so off goes BB8. So now this will be the architectural drawing that they actually do submit to the city. This is the actual building proposed. The base concept of the stuff that the city would accept with all of the modifications that they made using state laws and state waivers. So in this case, the architectural plans of the project would be a 6-story, all residential building with no parking and no art. And that is said to be compliant for the city. Even though it's not technically compliant for our city vision, state law says that the city has to deem it legally compliant because the developers used state law and state waivers in the creation of this new building. And so that is how we go from this, approved by city rules, to this, approved by state laws and state rules and required into existence by these laws. So whether you think this is a great new reality or not a great new reality, I think it's important that you know what the reality is. And there's a couple more pieces. One, there are additional state laws now that require expedited review by city staff, and that limits public noticing and public hearings. So even if there's something that's going up right next to you, you're not going to necessarily hear about it in the ways that you would have heard about it in the past. So there's a couple of recommendations I have for you to stay informed. Check a bunch our webpage for specifically city large developments, and also sign up for the city's weekly email. It comes right into your email box, and our city has created a new development corner section to help keep our residents up to date with what's happening in our city building-wise. I also make an effort to mention any new developments that are happening or updates on developments at the end of the city council meeting on the second Tuesday of each month. I'm here if you have questions. Thanks for watching.